Hi, welcome back to the Count to 10 podcast. My name is Simon Sanborn. I'm a behavior focused teacher, and I kind of put this podcast together to kind of my way of giving back to see if we can find better ways to communicate with each other. It is kind of teacher focused as well, student focused, kid focused, parent focused. Whoever could benefit from a couple tools and some ideas on this podcast would be awesome. So today it's going to be a little bit shorter and sweeter than ones in the past. I had a wonderful discussion with my wife the other night, and we were talking about how much our kids have changed over the years. Things that when she and I came together and blended our families, that we became very intentional about how we are interacting with them, making sure they all, because 4 boys is a lot of guys in the house, making sure they all have what they need each day, that we're connecting with each of them each day, so that we know, so that they know that the family that we're trying to put together is one that is about caring and love, and solving problems and finding answers. One of the biggest ones for that was my drill sergeant way of parenting. That's what I've kind of decided to call it. Just kind of give it a name and label it. Drill sergeant, parent. I wouldn't say I was a mean person all the time, but I definitely focused on the negative, and I definitely made sure that they knew when they had made a mistake and how bad that mistake was, and just kind of like grounded it into them. I really had my thumb on somebody. And, that's regretful for sure. I have regret over that. But as soon as I kind of began to recognize that, and again, my wonderful wife helped me with that. And she did it in a loving, caring way. How do you want to be with your children? How do you want them to see you? And that was eye-opening, because most people who know me and think of me as kind of a thoughtful, nice person. So then to kind of consider that my kids might not see me that way because of how I was parenting was a really wonderful thing to kind of realize. And wonderful, and obviously in hindsight. So what I kind of decided to start doing, or we decided to do together, my wife is, again, already good at this. I kind of followed her lead. But it was inside every single interaction we had with our kids, almost, right? Almost every single interaction, there was something positive said, even if something negative had to be addressed. So if, and that was for a couple of our kids, we had to do that. We had to make sure that because they got so many corrections, right? So a correction or a redirection or whatever it is, via a student, you being a parent and your child, or a teacher and a student, every single redirection and correction is a negative. Even if they're put in the most thoughtful, kind, wonderful tone, everything, it's a correction. And we know that it takes 5 positives to counter every negative. As you've heard me talk about on this podcast, we have a negative bias. I heard a conversation the other day about our judicial system and a jury. And they found that 90% of people say that when somebody is guilty, or somebody is, presumed innocence, right? That's not possible. Our negative bias is so strong as a species, which has kept us alive to this point, is that we right away just assume the worst. So it takes really thoughtful, flexible, open-minded people to be good jurists, because you really need to be able to see past that thing that we all have. So that being said, 5 positives to 1 negative. Now we kind of understand why our brains are wired that way. The negatives have a bigger impact on us because it's a survival thing. Now that we know that, how do we solve it? So 5 positives to every 1 negative. Like I said, it's like, hey, don't forget your shoes are on the stairs. Take them to your room. That is a negative, and it's not a hard negative, a horrible negative, but it's one check off the checklist of one more thing I'm being told, one more thing I'm not doing right, one more thing I'm not figuring out fast enough, or whatever it is. So 5 to 1. So with my son at home, what I did was made sure every interaction I had a positive, like I stated. So I really appreciate how you got the trash out on time yesterday. That how it drives me crazy when we have things kind of pile up. So thank you for helping me with that. I checked your grades today, and I saw that you had a B in this class, and it was a C last month. We talked about it. Thank you for following through with that, and I'm glad you got that grade up. Remember that if you need any help with any of that stuff, I am open and available to help you out. okay? Do me a huge favor tonight before you hit the sack, will you make sure you clean your room up and get your stuff off the floor and things are kind of tidied up, right? That one is a negative for sure, but all those other ones were positives. And I had to make up things sometimes, right? And make up in the sense of like find something really small, find something really simple and say a positive about it. I saw you put your dish in the dishwasher tonight. Thank you for doing that. Like simple and small, but impactful, which is kind of crazy. And then I think the last thing I wanted to talk about along with the same thing is when you have to make something up, it can be made up in the sense of like you have to set it up for them, right? So I'm trying to shoot off the top of my head. I'm trying to think of a good example. But if I had, to kind of prep them to do something for there to be a positive outcome, there's really only a positive outcome, right? So I prep them so they can't make a mistake. And then I can be like, look what you did. Or let's say put the groceries away, right? Go back through and everything's not where it's supposed to be. But they put the groceries away. Thank you so much for putting the groceries away. I really appreciate it. Absolutely, we could probably say, hey, do me a favor next time. Can you put the bread, not in the refrigerator, but put it in the bread box or whatever? Bread box. I just aged myself right there. So sometimes you have to kind of make it work for us, right? But that will have a profound effect on your kids. And I can only go off of myself and my example, but my kids have a much different, view of me than they used to. And I've worked really, really hard at changing that. I still work hard every day, right? I'm not perfect. I definitely have my fall back into old patterns and old habits, but I'm really trying to always be on top of that. And the coolest benefit of it that I didn't realize at the time was how much it affected me, right? When I was always trying to find positives, when I was always looking for the positive, when I wasn't focusing on the negative, right? That had an effect on me. It sounds like silly, like of course it does, it sounds so simple that we should know it already, but that's what it does. I start having a positive mindset. I stop looking at my son and thinking, great, what do I have to, what kind of grades do I have to look at today, right? Or awesome, I wonder if he took care of that thing I told him to take care of, right? That negative kind of mindset, this is not good for us, right? As people, as human beings and parents or teachers. So, as for teachers in the classroom, find those positives. Thank you for walking in quietly. It doesn't even matter if they're loud at the time or if they're with their friends and they're having a great time. Thank you for walking in positively, or walking in quietly. I really appreciate that. It's a big positive, right? And you have to find those things sometimes. I have to tell you, the people I work with, and this podcast is very pro-teacher. I'll give you that right now. Probably because I need to have something or some way to push back against kind of the narrative of teachers being this laid-back, lazy group of people that just kind of do what they need to do and then go home every day. And as I stated many times on this podcast, I don't know a single teacher who does that personally. And that this job is something that anybody can just walk in and do. And I challenge absolutely anybody who thinks that they know what a teacher goes through every single day to step in and do it. Here's the lesson for the day. Be a substitute teacher in the classroom. And I'm not talking about a behavior classroom like mine, right? I'm a behavior teacher, would never want anybody, even a seasoned substitute, to want to come in here and try to manage what I have kind of put in place to kind of manage. But just go walk into any gen ed classroom, especially part of the district I work in, and you are going to be challenged. It is not an easy job. And we had a kind of a teacher learning 35, 40 minutes today after school. And I went to two different little mini sessions. And the first one was on how to connect with kids, right? Connect with your students. Here are some tools, here are some ideas. The second one I went to was focusing on how you take care of yourself and some tools for that, a podcast, some ideas. You have teachers who are actively trying to find the best possible way to connect with their students. These are not their children. These are somebody else's children. So you have somebody who is trying their absolute best on a regular basis, and even when they're not teaching and they're outside the classroom, finding more tools simply to make an emotional connection with their student because they know that is how they learn the best. If they didn't care, they wouldn't be going to these sessions. If they didn't care, they wouldn't watch this podcast. If they didn't care, your kids would be getting the absolute bare minimum of education, and instead you're getting rock stars. And again, I would challenge, I have people who have told me like, well, if you're a teacher, of course you're a pro for everything they're doing. I'm pro human being first and foremost, and I see the human beings in this building, adults, who are doing everything they possibly can to connect with the smaller human beings that are in this building. And they're all your kids, right? Don't forget about that. They're everybody's kids. Because when they get out into the society, what kind of people are they going to be? So they're your kid too. So you should probably be pro teacher. Now, I'm not saying there's not things we need to fix inside the system, for sure. But you have a lot of people who are working very hard to make sure that these students are successful. And that's all they're here to do. So thank you so much for your time. I hope these are beneficial. Please email me, Simon, S-Y-M-O-N, Sanborn, S-A-N-B-O-R-N, @gmail.com. Please email me if you have any questions, any ideas. I'd love to share them on this podcast. And if you have a like a critique, if you have constructive criticism for me of how I can do things differently, or how my ideas might be different, or how you feel like they might be incorrect, oh man, I'd love to take that on, and not in a bad way. Like, I love being challenged, and I love stretching my thinking about things as well. I'm trying to be super open-minded about stuff. And if anything, I'm becoming more and more conscious of where I do have those closed-minded things, and I'm trying to be like really open-minded about every situation I bump into. So thanks again for your time. Take care of yourselves and have a good weekend.